outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening and welcome to the show on this lovely Tuesday. I hope everyone's back to work has gone smoothly thus far. I had the absolute heavens open up today this morning and I was like, yep, there's definitely time to go back to school. And Lucy, you're just loving life and chilling and laughing at us all whilst we go back to school.
Oh, I'm not laughing at you. I do feel for you all. I actually popped into my my old establishment today. Probably shouldn't call it an institution, makes it sound like prison. I just to kind of check in with a couple of people, and yeah, it felt weird kind of going in as an outsider. But anyway, that is not why we are here. How are you doing? Otherwise, all good?
Otherwise, all good. I'm excited for our show tonight. We've got a couple of lovely sponsors. Our first one is Future Careers, who provide a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. They help teachers to show their students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all the resources align with the Gatsby benchmarks and are free to download. So you just need to go visit Future Careers down the bottom there. .com and subscribe today. And if you want to know any more about them as well, me and Tom had them on a show. I say me and Tom told me about 2 seconds before we went on that actually it'd be better if I was on screen so it was nice and even. So I'm multitasking in case you watch the video version, but you can watch the video or the podcast back and check them out. They were just the guests were incredible and so intelligent and so articulate about these different things, and the resources sound incredible. So do go and have a little look at those.
Fabby do, and I love the fact that we're just dropping Tom Rogers in it there. Anyway, we've also still got the lovely John Catt Educational still with us, still sponsoring us there, covering Hannah up just for the moment. She's still pointing the wrong way. We still haven't got this right. So let's focus. So we've still got John Catt with us. If you're looking for some CPD, some books to read, it covers the entire educational spectrum. Do go and have a look. We still have a lovely 20% discount for you, which is JCTTR2425. That gives you 20% off the entire range. So go on, treat yourself. It's September. It's the new year, or new academic year, and you deserve it. So, okay, right. Hannah, we've got a bit of a double hitter this evening, haven't we?
We do.
So, of course, many of you will have listened in to Mr. Tom Rogers yesterday talking about the latest development with Ofsted and the scrapping of single word judgments. That has been followed up today by the release of the Big Listen. And so for the first part of the show this evening, we are going to break it down for you, sort of digestible version of it, and a little chat about maybe what these different things, what it indicates. So very condensed version, and included at the end of this section the link for you to have a look. I'm sure most of you have already gone and have a look, but we're going to try and down for you as best we can. So without further ado, we shall get cracking with that. Oh, I'm causing havoc.
I pressed at the same time as you. We will get the hang of this. You asked for this duo, you will receive, but may take a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, so we'll be fine. All right. Okay. So this report comes in the wake of everything that has gone on with Ofsted in the last. Well, I mean, I feel like it's been a while. Of course, we very sadly had the death of Ruth Perry and everything that has gone on since then. And all of this is kind of a culmination of sort of a much needed step forward, I guess. I mean, it's an interesting one because not being in the UK myself, I kind of it's very interesting to see all the developments again as that kind of outsider. So this report is broken down in different sections. And actually what I've done here is just kind of summarize the summary almost. So first of all, the report looked into Ofsted's culture. And as you can see here, a lot of people who responded said it had a negative impact on staff's mental health and well-being. There's a culture of fear around inspections, and there is more transparency required. And in sort of weekly review type fashion, Hannah, I'm going to sort of ask you your thoughts on this. I mean, does any of that kind of shock you? Any sort of sparkling revelations there that you were not expecting?
No, I think we were all expecting it. And I think because our show tonight is on education fads, isn't it? And I'm so glad that this fad of kind of Ofsted is kind of disappearing, and that hopefully this is like the new era of Ofsted. But I think it's really important that they have addressed it, because I follow Edmund Barnett Ward, who did all the commentary on the Ruth Perry kind of trial, and I remember him saying that he was just really gutted that like the momentum that it gathered from Ruth's death and wanting to change Ofsted kind of petered out and disappeared. So I feel like finally, like, teachers are actually being listened to, because I know there was an issue, wasn't there, with all the government saying that it was the unions were giving them different feedback about what it is that they wanted. Some of them wanted the statements to stay and stuff like that, but actually they all got into a room together, so therefore there wasn't any miscommunication. Everyone was in one place and helped kind of feed this through. So for me, it's overdue. But I don't think anyone would be surprised about that culture. I think since schools got judged on kind of results and kind of Ofsted kind of grades, it just puts so much pressure on the schools on outcomes, and that is what they're concentrating on. They're not concentrating on the kids as pupils themselves, as individuals. They're not concentrating on teachers and staff and well-being. It's just all about kind of that Ofsted grade and their outcomes. And actually, this hopefully this will be the change that we need. What about yourself?
And you'll see that some of the things that you've mentioned have come up as well. I mean, none of this is particularly shocking. We have all been jumping up and down for years and years and years about the negative impact, and we saw how bad that can be. I mean, we lost a fantastic head teacher. And I remember Flora Cooper at the time talking about, she was going to try and sort of stand against Ofsted coming into her school. She has sort of advocated fiercely. She was actually on Tom's show yesterday, which is well worth a listen back to as well. All of these fears, we know that. I mean, I've been through Ofsted in the UK. It's the fear and the sort of the painting the roses red and all of that goes with it is a bit of a nightmare. And more transparency required. Well, duh. I mean, yes, I think that goes without saying.
But I also think that there's a whole thing as teachers, we need to learn not to fear inspections. I was very much brought up in a classroom environment where it was normal to have SLT, mainly because my classroom was right next to the deputy heads, and he would wander in and wander out. And to begin with, I was petrified, and I was like, oh my God, like, he's just been in my lesson and he hasn't given me any feedback. And then, like, I spoke to him, I was like, you come into my lessons and you never give me any feedback. He's like, if there was something wrong, I'll tell you. I just wander around the school and I pop in. And that was normal. And and he really encouraged this open door kind of policy. And us as teachers we're like, oh, I want to look at this. Is anybody doing really great questioning? And somebody else was like, oh, I'm doing really good questioning on this lesson. And a couple of us would go watch, and then we'd feedback and say how great the lesson was. And it was this really nice kind of community feel. And like, when my last school got the call on Ofsted, I literally put my hand up, and I actually went to the head. I was like, if you don't send them in my direction, I'll be annoyed. And that's the way I've kind of embraced it. It's my opportunity to show off what an amazing practitioner I am, what an amazing kind of team I have, how good my curriculum is, how good my students are learning, and what their books look like. And I actually was very lucky enough in the fact that I cheekily asked if I could sit in while she questioned my students, and I did. And I got to hear the inspector kind of listen in and talk and ask the kids questions about what they're learning and how it all linked in together and what they previously learned. And they were so articulate, and I was so proud. But it's getting the right inspector. So granted, I have been very lucky. I've also had like a good hour's grilling when I was an enrichment specialist. But I just think sometimes it's more of a fear of it, especially if you've been in inspections but not been one of the ones to be picked to be observed. Like, it's one of those things, until you do it, you don't realize actually it's not that scary. You can only do what you can do. You shouldn't change your script. You shouldn't whack out like a special Ofsted lesson that you've got secret in your drawer, ready and raring to go. It needs to be consistent. It needs to just reflect the kids' learning, because they will ask that. I do think it's important they ask them. They should look at their books. They should see like consistency, but it shouldn't be something that we fear. It shouldn't be something that keeps you up at night. Granted, I did run around like a headless chicken because of the call and how little time we had and how we didn't know. But my students, bless them, we live very close to a McDonald's at my school. They all went and got me a McDonald's and brought it back to school. And we're like, we could tell you're stressed, miss, and we'd never seen that before, and bought me a McDonald's. But it was just getting the paperwork. That stressed me out more than the actual lessons. I knew what I was going to do in my lessons because I already know what you can ask me any week, any year group for the whole year. I'm good. But
we've talked about this before.
Yeah. So I just think it shouldn't be something that we fear. And we as teachers need to make sure, and leaders especially, we shouldn't be kind of having that narrative. So if you've had an inset and somebody's already throwing around the Ofsted kind of what we need to do for them, we're in an inspection window, we need to do this, or even the opposite of going, we're not in an inspection window, don't bother about that. That would be red flags to me.
You just reminded me of something. I was once in a school that shall remain nameless, where we knew it was coming, and we were told to big up management by management themselves. So that was and I was a very, very young teacher at the time, but I've never forgotten it. Right, so culture we've done. Right, Hannah, I'm going to get you to do the next one so I don't interfere.
I will be Chris Whitty for you.
Okay, inspection practice. So this is to do with how the inspections are carried out, and this goes a little bit deeper, but we'll go with this for the moment. So more supportive and collaborative inspections, and I think Hannah's already touched on that, where she sort of talks about it being sort of a joint exercise rather than a kind of, oh gosh, these po-faced people are coming in, what on earth are we going to do? Inspectors with the right level of expertise, and I think this is a big one, which we'll come back to in a moment. They need to know what they're doing. I mean, again, this is stuff that is not shocking. This is stuff that we know. You need people who've experienced the classroom in recent times, or fairly recent times, to be able to relate, to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to do what they need to do. Consideration of local context and challenges. This one out at me. Because I worked in a school, one of the schools I worked in the UK was in a very deprived area. There was a lot going on. It wasn't a special needs school, but we were almost operating in that capacity because of the amount of additional need there was in the school. And none of that was taken into consideration. And the teachers that I worked with there were, and still are, as far as I'm concerned, some of the best in the business. And yet that kind of got overshadowed because we did not receive a particularly good grade at the time because of everything else that was going on. But it just wasn't, none of what was going on around the school was considered. And then another one, Hannah, that I think will speak to you as well, which is engage more with SEND provision. It needs to almost be its own thing and looked at. And again, that level of expertise needs to be there in order to discuss that in a richer way.
I mean, it's all ticking the boxes, isn't it? I do think it needs to be supportive and collaborative, and kind of encourage schools in learning what's right and what's next. So it's not this kind of almost like patronizing, kind of talking down to schools, or you're only this. It should be this thing of like, how can we like learn from this experience and kind of increase standards and things like that. And again, I do think inspectors with the right level of expertise is really important. Obviously, there are inspectors that would have expertise across multiple fields, but I do think subject specialists are really good, because when you're getting interviewed and having a deep dive grilling and actually that person doesn't understand us. So from an art perspective, our national curriculum mentions architecture. And I know for a fact that Ofsted inspectors go into schools and ask them, where's your architecture? Show me where your architecture is. And they will hunt for it. Like generally, if you ask majority of the teachers, they wouldn't previously have kind of taught architecture until it became this thing that's what they were hunting for, to find out whether people included it. It can literally be oh, look, here's a building, this is by this artist, and that can be it. It doesn't have to be a whole scheme of work. They just have to show craft people's, so like a real range of different, it's just not looking at all kind of impressionist artists. Like there's a real range of different context and things that they're looking at, so craft and jewelry and basket making, and it could be anything. The architecture being on there, they're hunting and they're looking for that and trying to trip people out. And I know people that have made like whole entire schemes of work around architecture to make sure that it's really obvious, but it doesn't have to be obvious. It can be this little thing. You don't have to plan it around it. But inspectors that don't know that will go in and look for it and try and trip people up. But that's not, if a kid isn't taught about architecture, it's not massively affecting their education. But it's that kind of, again, collaborative thing of making sure they're teaching things in the right way, but also they're not trying to catch people out. Local context, I think, is again important, because I think as well, like cohort context, we're talking about that a lot. I mean, for me, I agree in terms of kind of raising the bar, that if you have high expectations of a group, then they will rise to them. If you have low expectations of a group, they will lower themselves to it. So there is that. But I do think kind of everyone has their own context, especially like if you have teachers off on maternity leave and you can't get supply, or the supply is rather below standard and the kids just aren't engaging and what have you, those kind of things should be kind of included and considerate and shown compassion over it. Because I think the Ruth Perry thing only came down to one tiny little detail, but because it was a safeguarding issue, they kind of instantly did it that way rather than letting her correct it. Like if it had been because of like, I know when my one we had a staff member that had been in a car accident, we said this staff member has only just come back, that they're one of the ones you picked, but you can see that they're happy to, but just please be mindful of that situation. And I think it's that protecting your staff, and as a leader making sure that they're making them aware of it, but also having this kind of kind Ofsted that will make it more interesting. And engaging more with SEND, I think obviously that they have already talked about this in quite depth, saying that how much of a shambles SEND has been left. So it is exciting for me, especially of a mum of a SEND child, that this is getting a little bit more focus. And although schools shouldn't do things for inspection purposes, but the fact that they will put more effort into SEND provisions because it's now on there, I think is very welcome in this respect.
But again, there's nothing shocking here, is there? There's nothing.
No.
This is all, again, stuff that we have certainly on Teachers Talk Radio talked about, certainly on Weekly Review, when, as you talk about with the SEND provision and the fact that it has been in crisis for so long. This is, again, all obvious stuff and all things we've been crying out about. And one of my frustrations on reading this was constantly going, well, yeah, we've told you this numerous times. This has been, up, down, inside out, back to front. We have been over this. But I suppose, as you rightly say, it's good that this is kind of in black and white, crystal clear now on the back of this. Okay, let's get cracking, kind of thing. Okay, next one. Okay, so as we know from yesterday, so the reporting side of things, single word judgments do not give the full picture of a provider. Again, well, duh. We've known this for a long time. Reporting on the experience of the child is important. I know that they are spoken to and it is, but making more of that, because it's ultimately, about them. We are there and in it for the kids. Reporting required for SEND and children from disadvantaged backgrounds. So again, being more inclusive and more mindful of context schools are in and of what they are providing, and acknowledging that in a positive way. I think that this particular, because again, as you say, and as we have mentioned already, wording is crucial, and wording, and often we can have a conversation and you can see my expression, you can hear my tone of voice, you can all the rest of it. But when something's then translated onto paper, that doesn't always the language isn't always kind of received necessarily in the way that it's intended, or it can read badly, or it just doesn't quite, articulate what the inspector meant, or maybe I'm defending them too much, but it just, you have to be so mindful, because, words can have massive consequences.
And I think this was the issue, wasn't it? That some schools, like I think it was Ruth Perry, they like the other areas can be good, but if a certain area, I think it was, is it teaching, learning, or safeguarding, were required improvement, then everything drops to that. So you can have everything on that. So I think a couple of schools ago when I got inspected, everything was outstanding except for one, which was teaching, learning, which was good. And literally it was a new school and they were hunting for a reason to not give it outstanding. So they brought in the head bigwig and we all had extra interviews, and it was quite a grueling process of them trying to trip us up. But because that one thing was good, we didn't get outstanding. And I think this is the thing, and that required improvement can like have that massive impact, that you've let that down, you've let that community down. This is what everyone's going to think it is, but actually it's just one tiny little thing that won't take much to get corrected, but that stigma is then attached to that school. So I'm really glad that the single word judgments are gone, and they don't give a full picture. But this new judgment, I mean, Tom's been ranting already, but I hope they don't go like, what is it, OGGO, or I should be GOOG, goo, like, and be like, oh, look at mine, or how we've been judged now. It, like, we need to get out of that habit. Like, that shouldn't go in there. But yeah, so the bottom two are very much things that are deep within my heart, that it should be about the experience of the child that's important. Which is why I think, like, it trips up bad teachers and bad leadership. If a kid in your class can't kind of articulate what they're doing and why they're doing it, are you really teaching them very well? Or does it look from the outside just because they're all sat there silently, kind of busying themselves, but do they really know why they're learning? And that links into Future and stuff, because their show that we did the other week, they talked about the resources that they have really give context to what the kids are learning, and kind of gives that big picture and really gets them to understand like what opportunities there are and things. So it's just, for me, it's that, like, there needs to be a reason for education. The reason can't be results and tables. The reasons need to be preparing kids for life outside of school and making sure they're getting the best experience of education. And that does go for our SEND and our disadvantage. And I was paying a lot of attention on my inset day. I'm pretty sure pupil premium kind of kids were a lot lower this year. The gap was bigger compared to other kids from not disadvantaged backgrounds. And I think it should be one of those that we really should be closing it down at this point. I don't know whether COVID obviously has made that gap bigger, because there's the kids that were getting the support at home and the kids that weren't, and it's made it like really abundant at this point. But we do need to make sure that we're really looking back at those and making sure that that gap is closed. So again, it's one of those that shining a light on these things, I think, is a good thing.
Fabulous. Right, next one. I think this is reporting continued. I think So important to report on quality of education, more focus on the child as a whole, not just a learner. So holistic development. So this is just kind of a bit more into what we were just talking about. And children's happiness and mental health should be a top priority. Again, Hannah, I know that's one that's very close to your heart as well. I mean, again, these are all things that we are aware of. For me, that holistic development as well, I think is huge throughout school, but certainly at primary level. And the happiness and mental health, again, it should be woven through the curriculum. It should be kind of part of everything that we do, because if children don't feel happy and safe, then of course you can't teach them. It's a non-starter. So that's really what I have to say on those points, Hannah, but I'm sure you've got more.
No, I completely agree. I think, again, the report needs to be kind of really showing the quality. It's understandable to parents, that they actually understand what kind of education they're going to get, because schools are very different. I think it is that we're so focused on kind of getting that English and maths data because that's what everyone's judged on. But it is that whole child, all of the things that they do, all of the things, like, not every child's going to be good at English and maths. Yes, we all want them to leave with the appropriate levels to be able to survive life, but we do want them to find what makes them tick and find what makes them happy. And again, it is that, like, are we making sure the right opportunities in the right places are there to support kids with their mental health? But more importantly, are we giving these kids the skills to be able to support themselves with their mental health? Because I think that is massive since COVID. So yeah, I do think there's whether schools have the capacity to do that, I don't know, because especially with CAMS and the delay and stuff like that, is it another thing that puts pressure on schools? It'd be interesting to see. That's the last one I do think schools will struggle with. Obviously, children are happy. We need them to be safe, and mental health is a top priority. But really, there's a lot of support that's needed for these kids that isn't available, and it shouldn't go down to schools to do that on top of everything else with budget cuts. So yeah, it'll be. I'm intrigued to see how that one will be measured.
Oh, most definitely. And I think that, and I remember when doing my undergrad degree, and we were talking about, because I did childhood studies, and we were certainly talking about multi-agency approach to children. And again, I think you're right. It's very easy to put this on schools, like a lot of things are, and teachers are continually put upon. And it's not the kind of, oh, poor us, but it is also the recognition of, hey, we are teachers. Ultimately, we are not mental health practitioners. Yes, the whole child is important. Yes, we do safeguarding training every year. We know, and we are sort of been around, working with young people for long enough to kind of know what to look for and things like that. And, put the time and energy into ensuring your classroom is a safe and happy space. But there is more to it than that. And that does require experts that are not us.
Not that keeping safe in education is a fad, but like, obviously it's something that we have to do every year, and it's not the fun bit going through all the types of abuse, but we have to do it. Do we think we need that kind? Does this need to be something that needs to be added in? Do we need a update on children's mental health, how we deal with it? Does that need to be kind of linked into that and done every year, do you think?
Well, maybe. Well, actually, interestingly, there is a bit on safeguarding towards the end of this. So I'll be interested to know your thoughts on that. And I think they've kind of looped it into that. Maybe not entirely in the way that you're thinking of, but certainly in part. So
shall I skip along?
Skip. Inspection impact. So providers should be held accountable for keeping children safe. I think that kind of goes without saying. Only half of respondents agree providers should be held accountable for quality of education or SEND provision. Now, this one, interesting. I think it needs unpicking a little bit because, quality of education is hugely important. That's kind of, sort of our bread and butter, really. And the number of good or outstanding providers does not indicate the overall quality of the education. And I put in brackets because they mentioned this as well, or care system. So point number one, Hannah, I think goes without saying there, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're good on number one. I find number two interesting, that half of the respondents think they should be accountable. I think the issue is that specifically like secondary school, the amount of kids we teach, it's really difficult to find the time to go through every kid's educational passport and know what their needs are. Like my school's introducing this thing, which I've done at a previous school and I did really enjoy it, but the hours it took me to do is quite painful. But I know once it's done and it's okay. So I went through all of the kids' passports and copied over all the things that helped them learn and had it all in one document. So I have a different document for every class I teach. Now, if you're English and you have, or maths, and you teach that class once a day, then you're golden. Muggins here, who teaches the whole of year 9, that is a different chore. But I know that it will make me a better practitioner. I know that if I know my SEND kids and their needs, I will be better. But also know my memory is like a sieve. And I have now inherited year 9, having not taught any of year 8. So I know none of these kids. So I now need to go back over. So I not only need to learn who these kids are, but I need to know their needs. And that is so much information. So I don't think we can be held accountable, because I don't think it's physically possible unless you're kind of, is it Rayman that has the memory that you can't forget? to be able to remember every kid's needs. I think there's obviously people in the school that do need to, like your Senko should know every kid's need that they're responsible for. But in terms of teachers, I think obviously my older classes that I see multiple times, I know all of their needs. The younger ones that I see once a week, not so much. But I do my best to try and do it. But we're not. But I think if they want that to be possible, they have to give us more time. Like an hour on the inset is not enough time for me to go through hundreds of children that I teach.
This is it. And if you're trying to cough out IEPs and things like that, certainly as a primary class teacher, in your PPA time, which is already taken up or already kind of, virtually gone with anything other than planning, usually, to be honest, then it becomes very problematic very quickly.
Yeah. So again, it'll be interesting that I feel like that's my opinion of where that kind of information's come from. But the number of good or outstanding scores does not does not indicate the overall quality of the education. So I wonder whether this indication that actually they're going to mark more schools lower, and that's why they don't want to be compared to the Tory government, that actually there's less good or outstanding schools, but maybe they're going to be more.
Yeah, this confused me, the statement, because I was sort of like,
yeah.
I don't quite know what you're getting at here. I mean,
or is this teachers saying that? Is this teachers saying like the results of it? Because in which case, like, yeah, we know that some schools are good for like 6 years or 15 years and still haven't been re-inspected, in which case they're not good, are they? Because everything's different. So if it's from that respect, then I can understand it. But it's again just shows that no one has faith in the titles and the names, and it just people shouting about them.
And yet again, it's quite nice to see it in black and white. I mean, of course, it's then the kind of, and I've even said this, I think, further on, what next? But it just, none of this is sort of as I described, a sort of sparkling revelation. This is, again, all stuff that, we have all said, we have all thought, we've all discussed ad nauseum. So, and I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but I think it does bear saying that, a lot of this is kind of what we expected, and we're all kind of going, my sort of big thing with this, yeah, okay, and now what? Because I'm very impatient, clearly. Right, next bit. I don't know how much more of this there is. I think there's quite a lot. Oh, there's more. Some unintended consequences to inspections, e.g. children being kept in class who are a risk to others. This is an interesting one. Because, of course, I mean, I know that I've been in schools where, and I'm sure you have as well, Hannah, where you kind of joked about shoving certain kids in cupboards or praying that they're not in and things like that, which is truly
disappear out on this sporadic trip that seems to be happening on that day.
Yes, kind of enrichment adventure. I mean, again, I'm saying this with a smirk on my face, but it's not funny at all. I mean, it's funny to kind of sort of think about these memories of sort of, and I can picture the kids in, in almost all of the schools I've been in, the ones in question that you just kind of think, if I could just, and I'm sure there are other teachers listening or watching this that are sort of chuckling along, going, "Yep, done it, said it, thought about it, everything." So there's that one, and then another sort of impact side of things. Many are in favour of expanding Ofsted's inspection powers. Again, I don't know how well this will go down, to include multi-academy trusts, so the overarching umbrella thing, I think that means, and groups of schools and chains of early years providers. So, Hannah, coming back to you.
So, yeah, I don't know. A part of me is like, I know what I'm going to be like, they behave for me. But like naughty kids,
you're that teacher.
I'm that teacher right now. But when you get an inspection and you need them to be good as gold, sometimes those kids just shine and don't want to let you down, because actually they know that they don't actually dislike you as much as they make out, and they're not bad kids. Like, I've had some challenging kids, but actually on inspection they raise their game and are so good, and I kind of love watching them in that environment. And like sometimes, like when I was like early, I'd let the kids in and I was like, I'm getting observed today. I don't know when it is. I'm really stressed out. Potentially they're going to come in the room. If they come in the room, ignore them, act normal, but be as good as gold, and I'll love you forever. And it's just like that they can do it, and also they don't want to they want you to succeed as much as like the other way. I remember when I got inspected, my kids came up to me afterwards because I was teaching that bit, Bob. She went round and spoke to them, and she's like, she asked me this question, she asked me this question, she looked at this bit, she looked at that bit. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I don't know whether I said the wrong. They was as invested in that inspection as I was. They were like, did I say the right thing? Like, they really wanted me to do well. But I just think it also, every school has the kid that's a bit of a pain.
I wondered what you were going to say then.
I was almost like, I was swearing away last week in the holidays. I'm going to be good today. And I think actually inspectors need to be okay with that. And every school has one or two or three. And actually it's showing how a school handles that. I think it's far more important than a leadership that's going to hide them away. And it says more about the leadership of that school, is kind of my view.
Sure.
But I'm well up for the bottom one, because I, especially like with a certain trust that I used to work for, where they got rid of loads of the lead practitioners. And I was like, but they were genuinely doing really good work. The right ones. Some of them weren't, but some of them were. And who's actually keeping them accountable? Why have you done that? How have you got rid of that? And how are you? What are all these jobs we had the other year where they were like posts of over 100 or 150,000, 250,000 pounds? Who is checking that? I want to know where my money's going, because it ain't going to me.
Damn right, and I'm with you on this. Like, if you are sitting pretty at Academy Trust on, as you say, a 6-figure salary, probably, I mean, I don't know if the bonuses, I don't begin to understand how that works. And you're kind of, with your feet on your desk. I mean, I'm sure there are many, before I get cancelled, there are many good Academy Trust CEOs out there, but there are also the ones who are kind of wheeled out for sort of high days and holidays. Or not even that, kind of high days, and sort of, it's like when the only time you saw the kind of the vice chancellor at university, it's sort of, who is this person? Oh, how marvelous and wonderful. But what is it exactly that you do? And I do think that absolutely they need to be, because ultimately what all of this is accountability. And I have no problem with teachers being held accountable. I do think we need to be. I think we do a very important job, but I also think that those around us need to be held accountable as well. And it's a reflection of, this is not just on you. This is the bigger picture as well. So yeah, I'm right behind you on that one. I don't know how many more of these I've got. Safely, I think we are getting close to the end. So those of you, we are going to move on to fads soon, but if you're sticking with us, and if you're listening in, watching in, please do comment along the way your thoughts on any of this, by the way. I should have said that. I'm hoping that all these people are going to stick around for the fads bit as well. Anyway, I'm digressing. I say the important bit, it's all important, but this is the bit that I think we really need to have a chat about. So, of course, safeguarding should be a top priority and any failings urgently addressed. I don't think you'd find anybody who works with children, young people, vulnerable people, elderly people, anyone who has to go through any kind of safeguarding training or has a job that involves me. I don't think any of them, or I'd like to hope not, would dispute the above, that first point. No. It just goes without saying. It should be a separate judgment. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with this, because we've mentioned, as you said, and certainly in the case of Ruth Perry, of course it goes hand in hand, but I also think that, it is a fundamental. Without safety, there is no school. It's not a safe space. Safeguarding more regularly than other areas. I agree with this as well. I think that, you want to come in and you want, the kind of the teaching and what's going on. That's great, but it has to be safe in all respects.
I think, though, obviously everything's gone pretty digital now in terms of safeguarding. I'm not aware of a school that still fills out purple forms and hands them in. So obviously we are all recording things more often. Granted, kids are exposed to more things with social media and internet and all that jazz. But like, if schools are getting this wrong and not getting it right, then that does really need to be looked at. But it doesn't mean that the rest of the school has anything wrong. But we do need to make sure this area, and this is the thing, I don't think it should be years between inspections for an outstanding on their safeguarding. Because it doesn't mean that they're getting that right. It does need to be checked. And if it's not, if there's issues with the safeguarding and safeguarding is required improvement or inadequate, then that I feel then should trigger a trust inspection, because actually who's teaching these safeguarding officers to safeguard properly? Is this going to be a pattern, and actually are they all going to be not safeguarding properly? So I think there should be kind of little caveat on that, would be kind of my thing.
I think that's very wise. I think that's really important. Anything else leaping out at you on the safeguarding front?
No, but we have had a little message in from JBL, our regular listener, who we now know his surname. We've only known as JBL. A girl I thought hated me once told an inspector, whenever I don't understand anything, Mr. Lawson always explains it really well to me. There you go. They can pretend like they hate their lessons, but actually they quite like being there. And actually they like being good for you, and kids will have your back. I think that's something that we kind of dismiss quite a lot, but actually I think if you asked any of my kids about me, they'd be like, actually Macy's all right, even though she's mean, but she's all right. Like, the reality of it, I think
I think we severely underestimate the loyalty of some of these kids, for sure. And I certainly can think of various moments. I'll never forget, I had a really bad I think it was during my it was during my PGCE, and I'd had some bad feedback. Something had gone wrong, and I went back into class, and I was clearly quite tearful. And a child mouthed across the room at me, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Oh, it finished me. It completely finished me. And I thought, because they know. Oh God. And yeah, that has stuck with me, because they do care.
Yeah, they do.
And and they, as you've sort of said, there are moments where you think, oh, they're not going to kind of sort of rise to the challenge, and they do. And I know we sort of whinge and moan about Gen Z and Gen Alpha, but they have more. There's more hope for this lot, really, than you think. This was shockingly small, Lucy. Well played. I thought it would blow up bigger than that.
This is from Tess. This is like the timeline of it all. It happened. So I'll read it out because I've got it bigger on my phone. But from today, we've got single word headlines, inspection grade scrapped. This one's an interesting. Ofsted to only call on Mondays, with inspections on Tuesdays and Wednesday. So they can't call later in the week. It can only be on the Monday. So you don't have that fear that you're going to get a call every day. You only got that fear on a Sunday night now. Exciting times. I hope all heads enjoy that.
What do you mean Sunday scaries, everybody? There you go.
Yeah, just Sunday scaries, not every day. I hope that eases all those heads' minds. It's got to be someday. I guess it's better than nothing. That's my education. I still feel like they need at least a week, because I feel like you should have a week to prepare everybody and really get all the documents. It's not like a mad night dash the night before. But that's just me. I'll take what I can get. But yeah. Judgment withheld for schools with safeguarding concerns, with a revisit within 3 months. From the 23rd of September, grade inspections resume. 4 areas will be assessed without an overall headline judgment. From the 7th of October, ungraded inspections resume. And Section 8, ungraded inspections will not include deep dives. This is my unpopular opinion. I like deep dives, but then I am strange. January 2025, consultations,
viewing figures, just
inductions, report cards, a new education inspection framework, regional improvement teams to work on a voluntary basis with schools rated required improvements in consecutive inspections. And from September 2025, report card for inspections launched, a new education inspection framework launched. But I feel like that's another show to ask what we'd want to see in that. I've actually my 2 cents.
Okay, fabulous. Right, so we're going to park Ofsted. Oh yeah, further information. I realise that none of you can click that, I don't think. So, but that is
it's on Twitter, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and you can Google it. Google Ofsted Big Listen, it's there, including the executive summary and the whole shebang. Right, so we are moving on to what the show was actually originally meant to be about, which is edu-fads. Now, this is is it portmanteau when you put two words together? Can't remember. Someone will tell me. Someone listening in will be like, yes, that's the right.
You're asking an art teacher.
Primary English teacher, I should know. Primary everything teacher. Anywho, so we're going to put ourselves back on screen and go over to banners. And what we're going to do here is I had a ponder, as did Hannah, about kind of the edu-fads of sort of recent years, but also the ones that we kind of think are going to be big for sort of 24, 25, but also some ones that we're kind of like, do these really need to stay? Are these really as great as we think they are? There might be some ones in there, and I'm fully expecting mutiny to break loose. We've got currently 469 people viewing across all platforms, so we're hoping to get some comments and some maybe some backlash here. Maybe get some thoughts and feelings, because I am sure that there are going to be some controversial ones in here. So I'm going to take my lovely slides down, or I'll get Hannah to do
it. Before we get into those, I'm just going to play our lovely sponsors, and then so you've got a minute. If you've got any, if you want to have a guess what we've got, then comment in, or if you've got your own, then pop those on, and we'll go through them in a second.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. John Catt have an exceptional collection of book titles that cover a range of educational topics, ideas and research. The books are aimed at forward-thinking schools and support best practice teaching for both primary and secondary education. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await? How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
We're back, and you've got our faces in, I don't know, it's HD?
Large.
Right. So I have I don't know how many of these we'll get through, but we'll do our best with what time we have left. So yeah, those of you listening in, and we're approaching 500 now, which is super cool. So I'm fully expecting those of you who are watching in, listening in, to get stuck in with this, because the whole point of this is actually to provoke some of you. So if I don't manage to provoke any of you, I'm going to be very sad. Right. Okay. So first and foremost.
Oh, are you still there, Liz? I lost you for a second.
I am. I'm still here. Right. Okay. So you'll see along the bottom our fads as we go through. Seating. Now, I chose this one because I think people have mixed feelings about this. Now, I'm a primary teacher. I moved my children weekly, but it got to the point where it kind of backfired, because it would take so much of my first lesson Monday morning that I'd end up with half a maths lesson. And it got to the point where actually I ended up leaving them for 3 weeks in the same spot, and they got thoroughly irritated with me. In terms of primary, I am a big advocate for mixing them up. I don't, and have never, as far as I'm aware, seated in ability groups. I'm not a big fan of that. I do think that it is a bit like playing the maddest game of chess with primary kids, particularly if you've got a class where you've got some a variety of animated characters. But yes, and particularly when you've got parents coming to you saying, well, so-and-so can't sit next to so-and-so because so-and-so's fallen out with so-and-so, and you're just like, oh, for crying out loud. I definitely have had parent meetings where I have had to calmly explain to parents that, you know, it is not Jenga, it is chess. And, you know, I will do my utmost with it. And I appreciate that there are certain kids who probably shouldn't sit together, but, you know, once in a while, they might have earned it, or I don't know.
You're going to sit with that kid you have earned.
Yes, but I'm doing time. I've honestly, this is why I'm on sabbatical, boys and girls, because it's the seating plans that did me in. That was it. That's what cracked me. Anyway, I'm rambling. Hannah, thoughts on this one?
My unpopular opinion is that they should be sat boy, girl, boy, girl. I don't know whether other people agree.
I'm waiting for come on, people, do me proud.
I don't know why I've always done it. I've always thought it's better. Whenever it's not worked as better, but I think it works better. But it wasn't actually a question on Teacher Tap the other day, and I missed the results. So I don't know if anybody saw them. Please send them to me. But like whether you thought it would, do you think it benefits them? Do you think it disadvantages the girls or disadvantages the boys? I do think it maybe disadvantages the girls slightly, but it does make the boys behave. So on the whole class benefits. And also, I feel like I'm so responsible for their dating lives. I love finding kids that I think kind of would make really cute couples and then sitting them together and just watching them, kind of the really good girl and the naughty boy. And like he starts behaving because he wants to impress her. And it's like, yeah, I'm so responsible for that. And I love it.
Oh, modern love stories.
I'm basically the Tom Rogers of secondary school kids.
Oh, yeah, we need to bring back edu-date. Tom, if you're listening, bring back edu-date. But yeah, I mean, there are many schools of thought on this. This fad is, I say fad, it's gone on since the dawn of time, because I think also schools have different policies on it as well. I mean, I don't know if there are still schools that are encouraging teachers to seat according to ability. I'd like to hope not. But you never know. So if you are in Hannah's art class anytime soon, you will be seated boy, girl, boy, girl. If you are in my classroom anytime soon, well, it depends on your behavior, doesn't it? And if you want to sit next to so-and-so, then you're going to have to, show me. And actually that does work. Although then you put them together and it's the week from hell, because, you threaten to split them up. You never actually end up splitting them up because you forget that you threatened to split them up in the first place. Chaos. Anywho.
Yeah. I don't know whether it works. I've just always done it. I'm sure there's research on it, but and also I do seem to do my kind of low ability next to my high ability, because I get mixed groups, or my kids with learning needs next to my high ability. So they've always got someone to explain it to them, so I don't have to. Make your life easier, people. Work smarter, not harder.
I was just about to say, you took the words right out of my mouth. Right. Okay, I think we'll leave seating plans. I think that's a fad that's probably going to stay. So for 24-25, that's probably a tick. Okay, next one. Now I included this next one. Where is it? It's here. I included this next one because it always kicks off on X/Twitter. There's Whiteboard Gate, Pen Gate. Something always kicks off, but Whiteboard Gate seems to rear its head periodically, to be honest. I have a love-hate relationship with whiteboards. I do use them. I think it is quite good in a primary maths lesson. Whiteboards up. If you train a class, I mean, again, it's if you've got a kind of class where this does work. Unfortunately, I have had classes where it does work, holding up whiteboards, regardless of kind of what's on them and things like that. Sometimes it's not anything to do with your maths lesson. Quite often it's nothing to do with your maths. It does work. It works quite well. However, the amount of whiteboard pens I go through, the amount of kind of inappropriate, I say inappropriate doodling, not really inappropriate as in, you know, things they're drawing are inappropriate because these are 8-9-year-olds, but just doodling of usually Among Us characters, for those of you who are familiar. Or do you remember the kind of funny S's that we drew in school? Yeah,
like infinity S's, yeah.
Yep, those have made a comeback. Yeah, and then I kind of got to the point where I realized I was being hypocritical for telling children off for doodling, because actually the ones who were doodling were listening. But yeah, I think that they will probably stay. I think they have their uses, but I completely understand if they were to be wiped in favor of something else.
Well, that was Rogers was talking on the show on Tuesday. He hasn't sent me the research, so I'm not sure if it's true, about apparently if kids doodle for a certain number of minutes a day, it'll actually improve their mental cognition. So maybe we should be improving the doodles. Obviously, art teacher on that vote. I, however, teach secondary school, so I do get the inappropriate doodles a lot. And I hate whiteboards. I am very anti whiteboards. I don't know whether it just doesn't really work for my subject.
No.
Me having to draw on a whiteboard myself and try and make it look like something is also one of my like fears, and I hate it. I did have to do a digital board once and draw with a pen, and that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but still, just drawing in anything like that, like no, just no. So whiteboards for me, I just hate it. I just end up with board markers everywhere. The boards just end up really dirty because they can't clean them, or there isn't any cleaner, and they
use their board rubbers.
Plastic, like save the environment, like give us a thumbs up, thumb down. I don't know. I've never been a fan. I have tried them, but I cannot get on board with them, and I really want to see them gone.
I mean, I don't blame you. I think their uses are becoming kind of fewer and far between. And honestly, for the amount of admin involved in them in primary versus actual use, I think that I don't think that they're worth it. But we'll see. So that is a sort of on that one, I suppose. Because I'm team primary, I suppose I'm going to vote kind of keep. They're probably going to stay for now. Unfortunately, Hannah, sorry about that one.
Hang on. We've got Miss Lester. I worked in a school that had laminated sheets in their planners, which we used instead of whiteboards. They were a state, but meant only having to dish out pens and rubber. Yes, so like I've had that. Like they have a laminated sheet in their planner, so you can write on that. But I tended to use that more than the kids. So if kids had needs and they can't remember my instructions, I would just kind of get their laminated page and their planner, because they all had to have their planners out, and I'd just write the notes on there for them to remember, as opposed to the whole class. But I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing that annoys me, is that whether you use the laminated sheets or the whiteboards themselves, they just get so dirty and grubby, and then they don't stay clean very long, do they?
No, and it ends up being some poor teaching assistant who gets fobbed off with that job at the start of the year or periodically, and to the point where I actually refused to let anybody do it. They were so disgusting. At the end of this year, I had a teacher say, "Oh, do you want me to?" I was like, "No, don't touch them. I'm probably going to bin them. Don't, just leave it alone." Okay, that's whiteboard gate for another day. I'm surprised that people are being very quiet, aren't they? Was that Oh no, we've already done Darren's comment. Come on, people! I'm looking for more comments. I'm looking for more controversy. I'm looking for people to fight us on this stuff. I'm not exactly in the mood for a fight. It's Tuesday evening, but come on. Any thoughts? Right. I need to get back to my what's it. Right. Next one. Okay. AI. Now, actually, this one I think floated by Tom Rogers. I think this one is on the up. I think that is it a fad though? Unfortunately, I don't think so.
You're cutting out a little bit, Luce.
Oh, sorry.
We've lost you a little bit. Oh, you're back. No, are you back? I'll go for this bit a little bit, and then I'll let you go. I think AI is here to stay, but I think I think it's going to be one of those. The schools that cotton onto it and teach their teachers how to use it are going to be the schools that thrive. The schools that go, no, that's just another fad and don't learn how to do it are going to get behind. The schools that haven't got like up to date with their Teams or their Google and don't use them appropriate and are still downloading PowerPoints and emailing PowerPoints and not using some kind of drive. Let's face it, we're meant to be all using drives for kind of keeping things safe in the cloud anyway. But the people that are not up to date with those kind of things are then going to get further behind with AI. It's also those people like they're also going to have to work harder. AI is for some, like with my masters, a lot of my masters use AI. We have AI generated lectures that are read out to us by little bots, which is annoying, and I would like to see them go. But I use AI with all my assignments and helping me, and like all the questions that I ask myself, I can ask that. And I think that's how education is going to go, especially further education. So these schools that are pushing kids into university, they need to teach the kids how to use AI and use it properly. I'm a bit nervous to actually ask whether I can teach my kids how to use this because I feel it would really benefit a lot of them. But again, if it's used wrongly, it is shocking and it's bad and obvious. But if it's used correctly and they learn how to use the prompts and how to like edit their own work and reread it and things like that, I think they're really important skills. And it's one of those that I feel like is going to be a life skill in a few years' time. And if we don't adapt and change, then the kids that work out how to do it on their own are going to thrive, and the kids that haven't been taught it aren't.
I know, I agree. And certainly, I mean, have you got an AI lead at school?
I don't think so.
Because I think that's certainly the thing, and certainly it was talked about. I think we've definitely talked about it at Teachers Talk Radio. It'll be better when it's intelligence and not a plagiarism machine. Yes, Darren's right about that one.
Because that's my thing, is that I make sure I write everything in my own words and then put it in and then put like the bits in and be like, if you can do it cleverly and understand how to use it, it's good. If you just go, write this, here's my homework, write it, it's a different thing. And I think it's teaching the kids how to use it properly.
But also us as teachers as well. I mean, I've openly confessed I used AI to support with my reports this year, but all the kind of sort of the crux of it was me. I just kind of needed it sort of putting, phrasing sort of for the kids that were slightly similar. I needed it phrasing slightly differently because I wasn't about to rewrite the same thing, however many times it was. But I do think we have to model responsible and correct usage. I do think that is down to us as well. And if we're seen to be using it responsibly and using it for sort of not for everything, but kind of mindfully is the word I was looking for, then I think that also children and young people will take a lot from that as well. So I do think it's here to stay, but take all your points on that it needs to be, and also we need the training on that as well. The CPD, all of that needs to be done, because unlike when we were all thrown into lockdown, a lot of us, many of us were okay and kind of took to the online teaching quite well, but there were a large cohort of teachers who found it really, really difficult and who were not as strong with it. And I think this will be the same with AI. It'll, if you can't beat them, join them. Well, you kind of have little choice now in educational environments, because it's not going anywhere.
I think because I'm dyslexic and I really struggle with writing, I can write it and I'll be like, can you make this make more sense? And I'm learning how to write better from it. So it's kind of, I think it is, and same as I will babble and write stuff, but I also dictate as well to make it. I'll dictate in like something, and then I'll be like, check what's been dictated, or check this. And especially like with emails, if I dictate in an email and then I'll be like, right, can you make this sound more appropriate to send as an email? Then I sound more intelligent and better. And also you can say, write an email about this, and it took me like 2 minutes, and actually AI did it. We're getting the debates in now. Apparently there's an interesting debate on Twitter yesterday where it was suggested banning the use of AI as an ableist. Disabled writers argued that this was insulting because it suggested they were unable to write. I can see the same sort of discussion happening in schools. Yeah, I think it's one of those, isn't it? But the kids that are intelligent enough to use it will see the benefits. But also it will help some other and the disadvantaged and lower ability to help show them how to do it. But it is a case of it's not just to type it in and hope for the best.
No, and I think modelled examples, it's a game changer. But just that, modelled examples.
And then we've got JBL. Students at some top universities in America are saying now Ds get degrees, which means that humanities students submit AI-generated essays and the professors give them Ds because it's too difficult proving students haven't written those papers. I mean, like my university has to turn it in, so it checks it against kind of plagiarism, and everyone will have that. But it is difficult to check it, but it will flag it up, because I know where there's specific essays where I've quoted a lot of different things or written specifically, like the last one I wrote all about careers at the FRA was referencing the Gatsby benchmarks a lot, so they came up as a higher percentage. But there are places that can do it, but it is difficult again to say. But I think if they've done it well and they've used it well, then that's fine. But I think you can tell when it's not used properly, especially in kind of secondary school. It's going to be quite obvious. But yeah, sure. But this is the way I think the workplace is going to go. Like, and if we're not preparing them, are they going to? Somebody else will swoop in and take that job.
Well, exactly. We need to, you do have to join, I'm afraid. Well, at least my take on it is that, if you're not prepared to some extent to get on board, then you're going to find it hard. And I'm not suggesting that you kind of have to do everything with this, but you do have to have an understanding, and you do have to be able to acknowledge that this is going to be part of your life, whether you like it or not. On that note, let's move on.
I was just going to say, there are some really interesting things to do with it as well. If you want to use it as a more interactive tool in lessons, I know people that will have conversations and the AI will answer them back and give them opinions and stuff. But I've also seen a great one where it's like only reply with one word, and it will give kind of controversial things and it will summarize them in one word, and it's quite interesting. Then you have a debate. Do you agree with the word that they picked and things? So it can be like, and that's based on kind of popular opinion about something, like cultural, like, and so it's like a woman's place, like home or something, like like things like that. So it can be quite fun. It's not just this serious thing about copying and pasting, and you can have I like having conversations, like, I'm thinking about writing this, what do you think, like, what is your opinion on this? And it is this bigger thing than it needs to be. So yeah, we'll see. Next one's an interesting one.
Right, Hannah, this one's for you. So multicolored marking. I mean, this drives me crackpot in primary school. I've been in no marking schools. Not sure how I feel about that. I have been in schools where it has been pens, highlighters, you name it. I've been in schools with purple pen. I have been in schools where they don't give a monkeys as long as it's marked. I think at primary level, detailed written feedback is a colossal waste of life. I think that there is a lot to be said for verbal feedback, but it needs to be, that needs to be done effectively, and under no circumstances are most people going to get around an entire class. Don't get me wrong, we like pretty pens. We've talked about this, and we talked about this last week when we talked about well-being and buying that pretty stationery, and you should, but it should be going to other uses, not marking exercise books. Do I know what the alternative is? No, I don't. Not really. I'm going to breathe. Hannah.
I'm going to ask you a question. What's your opinion of marking in red pen?
No. Colour anger.
So I find that bizarre, like that you're not allowed, like, so I've been in places where I'm not allowed to mark in red pen. I'm going to mark in red pen, especially if it's in a mock exam. Like, those kids need to know when they've vexed me that they're not writing like one sentence on an 8-mark question. I am marking that in a big red pen. Like, they need to learn those life choices.
I think it's secondary slightly different. Maybe I'm being too kind of princess primary teacher about this, but I've also been in schools where pink and green mean completely different things, like pink is perfect or pink is correct, green is good, green is you need to improve. It's just no one agrees. It's nonsense. But I'm a no on the red pens. But we talked about those, the big pens, lots of content. But Everyone knows the pens we're talking about with the different colours. The green and pink ones, I used to go through those. I've got at least 5. JBL, right, you are fired from listening to these shows in future. But JBL is secondary, isn't he?
Yeah.
Team Hannah. They behave for you, and you know, no pen.
Tom is ranting about that in the background.
Listeners, viewers, you should know that Tom Rogers in the background is having an absolute meltdown about the whole behaviour thing, and the debacle going on in the chat is quite something. But you know,
we'll have a whole show on that another time.
See me after, I think is yes, there is a mutiny going on at Teachers Talk. No, there isn't. We're all fine. Everything's great. But yes, multicolour marking is a colossal waste of time.
So I agree that it needs to be a different colour. So we kind of give, well, not necessarily verbal feedback, but whole class feedback. So the whole class feedback goes on the board, and the kids correct their work in a different colour pen. Our school is purple pen, and then you can see very clearly what they did in lesson and how they've improved it. So you can see that they're improving. I completely agree with that. I want to see that the kids are improving. I want to see it develop in that way. The other extreme, which is not using marking pens, but very extreme, I remember being told by an ex-HMI inspector that in art, we should, when they've done their first drawing, we should take a picture of that drawing, then give them the feedback, and then they should improve that drawing, and then we should take another photo and add that in so we've got, they can see all the levels of feedback and how they've acted on it. And I'm like, no.
What part of absolutely not?
No. But I like the fact that I can see when they've improved. I can see what they did originally and how they've improved it. I think that's really important. But I don't think it matters what colour pen. I've had kids be like, I don't have that pen or what have you at another school, because my school gives out pens, so they will always have a pen. But my old school didn't, and I'm just like, just do it in pink. Just do it in whatever colour you can do it in sparkly colour. I don't mind. As long as it's a different colour, I can tell what you did before and what you did next. It can be black and blue for all I care. But as long as I can see a difference between it, then I'm fine. Or if they don't, then they'll do it in black pen and then they put a little highlight box around it. And I'm okay with that. I love it. I'm a little bit, maybe this is controversial. I'm not that fussed whether they, why do we make them write in black and blue pen? Why can't kids just write in multicoloured pen all the time? They should do the corrections in black.
That doesn't bother me either. I think you are going to start World War III in a moment. I think if X or Twitter hasn't lit up on the back of this show, I feel like we're doing it wrong, Hannah. I feel like
there's nothing important like an Ofsted document out or anything Lucy as far.
Are we just setting our careers on fire here? I don't know. Maybe I'm sure Tom Rogers is in the background being like, why did I ever suggest pairing these two up? Like, what is happening? Just bringing down the entire establishment one show at a time. Anywho, the other thing I was
just to continue this.
We did. It's true. On that note, the other thing that drives me batty is the what?
This next one's interesting. I think this one might get a few.
But if you have to stick a symbols chart, because I was talking to a year 3 teacher about this today, a symbols chart, so your children have a key as to what your various crackpot kind of shapes and doodahs mean. But this is a thing in primary English. So there's a certain symbol for a spelling correction. There's a certain symbol for a missed word. There's a certain symbol. And I'm looking at it going, I can't even memorize that. So how can I expect an 8-year-old to look at their English work and go, right, I think I'd probably choose 3, like I used to do with misspelled words, or maybe the really piece of work 2. And I just wiggly line it and write it for them. Like, are they going to sit there and copy it out 3 times? No, they're not. So for another time, I think we better.
When I was going through my teacher training year, I had a whale of a time that I had a collection of different coloured bingo dobbers, and I would go around and I would dob the different coloured dots. And then on each table, it had what that dot meant, and the kids had to write it out, so I didn't have to. But I had a whale of a time marking in coloured dobbers, and just putting it out there that should come back.
That sounds fabulous. We're going to have a separate conversation about bingo dobbers. Have you ever read 150 essays written in lime green? That does sound.
You may have a point. I may retract my statement about marking in any colour whatsoever.
Yeah, that does sound like it would make you feel quite sick. Right. Okay. Next one. Oh, Darren again. We had to do that and all have the same key. It doesn't work in MFL because I don't need them to use French punctuation rules. Right. Moving on. Oh, it's meant to be me that's doing that, isn't it? Track the teacher / slant. Also say here. I know we've ups and downs. Teachers talked about it. I think it's I really do. I think death along with some things in this list.
Is it over, or have we got another year or two of it?
I think it's in its twilight years. I'm trying to kill it off. Like I haven't worked in a school where this has been a thing. Also, you never worked in a primary school. Like, I'm sorry, nice try, but absolutely not. This is not, and also any children with any kind of neurodivergence, it's not inclusive of that. We've gone round in circles over this. I've sat in staff meetings and tried to play the game, tried to watch the speaker or at conferences. I don't do it. Like, no. And I do. And I think that there's this ingrained belief that if you're not looking at someone, you're not listening. And for a long time in my teaching career, I felt like that was the case. But unfortunately, it's not the case. There are children who will be doodling or have a fidget or whatever it is. They are listening, but it might not just be in the classic sense. And this is why classroom teaching in itself, I think, is a dying thing as well. That's my controversial statement of the thing. I think classroom teaching is actually counterproductive.
I don't know how to follow that. I was late to the game on Slant. So I've watched an awful video on Track the Teacher years ago that kind of really made me go, oh, yeah, no, that makes me feel uncomfortable. And I do find that different. I do kind of go like eyes on the board or what have you, if we kind of talk, if there's like a video or what have you, and I do genuinely want them to watch it, then I feel like that's a statement. Sometimes I do get the like, look at me, like nothing in your hands, like making sure we're paying attention. So they're not fiddling with or still writing and not really listening. So I do get that, but like I'm halfway on the sit up straight. I feel like it is a bit of like a reset, but also when I'm made to do it. So my school is very much that we do everything that the kids do. So on inset, if they needed our attention, they put hands up and we all put hands up and we're silent. In certain points, if they lost us because they talked to us for a long time, they would tell us to slant and every teacher in the room would slant. But that, like, for me, I don't know whether that's a separate thing. I don't think teachers would have to redo it. I think we should model it, but is it necessary when the kids aren't there?
Also, again, and maybe this is the primary teacher. How are you sitting currently, just out of interest?
I'm chilling on the sofa.
Are you sitting cross-legged? Are you sitting sort of...
I was for the first hour, and then I realised that I couldn't do that because I'm going to embarrassingly admit it. I went on an 8-kilometre social paddleboard last night, and about just over halfway back, my paddleboard decided to break in half, and I lost the actual paddle end. And then my poor friend Carl had to tow me back for about 3 kilometres, which wasn't the most comfortable. So, yeah.
How does one, I mean, again, this is digressing. How does one break a paddleboard?
It was the oar. It fell out the bottom and then filled up with water and sank quite rapidly. Like literally there was somebody like a couple of meters behind and it had gone before it, like they'd got over to it. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I asked because I used to, again, be really kind of about how kids sound. And believe me, in primary school, I've seen feet, and I don't even know how to explain this to you, feet over the back of the chair, leaning so they're on their knees, the feet are over the back of the chair, and that is a hard no. That just gives me
I would probably sit like that on a sofa, like on a little sofa seat. I'd have sideways legs over the end. Yeah.
But my general sort of compromise is as long as your butt is in contact with the seat of the chair, legs but I don't want to see your knees, because I see a lot of I've had kids that can actually fully, this is how tiny some of them are, can actually fully hug their knees and sit on the chair. I'm like, but how are you writing anything? Like and they're trying to write. I'm like, no. I don't want to see your knees, and the butt has to be in contact with the chair. Other than that, and they still, believe me, they still find all kinds of, but again, this is, am I being kind of over the top in terms of kind of, being sort of all embracing of sort of neurodivergence and things like that? Have I gone too far? I don't know. Some kids need certain cushions and all the rest of it.
Yeah, my son's a fidget cushion. It does help him. But yeah, but if I'm at home, if I'm studying, when I do my maths, I sit cross-legged, and I have everything around me. That's just how I sit. Do we need to put that much emphasis on how kids
I used to have kids lying on the floor doing their English work.
Yeah, lying on the floor and doing work.
And there would be other teachers and things, and there would be people coming around the school being like, are those kids? I'm like, they're writing, they're doing it. I had to stop it after a while because they were starting to take the mick. But for a while, it worked quite well. And they were
I just imagine your classroom being like, do you know the blob tree picture?
The blob tree picture. No,
when we do the next wellbeing, I'll do the blob tree is like a tree with all these blob men in, and they're all doing different things, and it's like they're different emotions of where they're at in their lives, and you're meant to like pick which blob person best represents you and how you're feeling at the time. But literally, it's like some are lying nicely on a branch, some are hanging from the branch, some are swinging. It's just like, I feel like that might be your classroom.
And the teacher is standing on her chair, kind of just sort of adult leader-esque. No, I'm joking. Right. So I think this is bad. I think a lot of people actually don't enjoy this one. I know that we've talked about it, and it'll probably come up again. Is dying / has died. Bye-bye. Now this one, I am going to apologize in advance to Kate Jones if you are out there, because I know she's a big fan and has done a lot of work on this. I'm not exactly anti-retrieval practice. I do use it. But it comes with pitfalls, because obviously there are many different ways of doing it. Always necessarily engagement with it. Like if you're doing a multiple choice at the start of your lesson or set of questions as the retrieval practice, you will get this every time who will wait until the answers come up. There are some kids that just won't do it, and it can be, and I think this is one that kind of, when it sort of became a fad, which was, I don't know how long ago when I really sort of heard about it, good years I think. I think everyone was kind of really excited to get behind it. And I think, like with all these things, great until it became overused. Like you can't use it every lesson because kids will come on to it, and because it's kind of, or in some cases, some people using it and maybe as a more routine side of things. I go on and off this one. I think that it can be used for good, but you need to be sort of, it's one of those ones that, yes, I think it'll stay, but I think after the initial excitement, use with caution and use sparingly would be my take on this one.
I completely agree with how it's used. I do use it in routine when they come into the room. They have that to do whilst I do the register. But I think the key is variation. A lot of places go, right, you're all doing 5 questions at the start of the lesson and that's all you're doing. It's the same thing every lesson. There's no variation in how that they are retrieving that information. For me, I make sure if they're retrieving their colour theory, then there's another lesson where it's just the pictures and they've got to work out how to retrieve it. I've got the next lesson, they'll then have a picture of a famous painting and they've got to label it with the colour theory. So each time they're applying that knowledge that they are retrieving in a different way. If all they're retrieving is the same questions every time in the same way, just different one each week, then they're not kind of it's not going to be embedded. They're not going to remember that past leaving school. And it gives me teaching to the test vibes. Kind of, we're just giving them the facts, they'll be able to recall it, they can do it, but there's no context or actual kind of understanding from the kids as to why they need to know that. And I very much try and make my retrieval that it's then links to that lesson that they're then going to use that knowledge, that it's important and valuable, and it's not just retrieval for the sake of retrieval, it's retrieval for a purpose. And I think that's the kind of difference I'd like to see retrieval have a revival and go up a level, is where I would like to see retrieval
I
go.
can get on board with that, because otherwise it quite literally and metaphorically becomes a box ticking exercise.
Yeah.
And how dull. I think you're right. I think, and the fact that you're using it in something like an art lesson, which would never have occurred to me to do, or how that would be possible, I think is super cool. So again, that shows that it can be used cross-curricular in a variety of different ways. So I think, so okay, so keep it, but be innovative and creative with it would be.
Yeah. I
okay.
had an insight session where I was chatting to the PE teacher, and he was like, how do you do retrieval? Because we don't want to do it the same as what everyone else does it. And I was like, retrieval for me could be colouring in a tonal ladder, because those kids are changing their pencil pressure, they're practicing how to blend, they're retrieving those skills that they're then going to need in that lesson. It doesn't have to be just retrieving facts. It should be something that's important and relevant. And I think we should be, reviving it in a way that kind of extends it past that.
Okay, I accept your proposal on that one. Education means lighting a fire, not filling heads with facts. There's actually a brilliant thing I saw on Instagram where it was quite literally that. It was on one side, it was a sort of a cartoon of a child's head being opened up and the sort of water being poured in, and the picture next to it was the heart in his chest, but it was like a little candle with a little flame, just being, this is what teaching should be. And I was like, oh, I like that. So yes, JBL, I'm with you on that one. Okay, we should probably pick up the pace a little bit, because I've realized we're short on time. So I'm going to try
1 minute hit on each one.
we're going to try and be, well, it's a bit like doing show of the week, isn't it? But we'll try and be, we might run over slightly, but I think
We turned into Paul.
I know, but I think we'll be fine. Oh yeah, get well soon, Paul. He's not very well at the moment, but hopefully back and with it for a weekly review. We're digressing, Hannah. We're digressing. So okay, so retrieval needs revival, but a active one.
I'm getting it. I'm just putting it on.
This one, differentiation / adaptive teaching. I think differentiation has kind of died for the most part, from what I can tell. However, I was speaking to another friend who teaches internationally. I think she's in Oman or somewhere like that. And she was saying she still knows of teachers who use, and Hannah, I don't know if you'll be familiar with this. This is a very primary thing. And any primary teachers listening to this will be cringing, because we've all done it. The chilies. So 1 chili for the slightly less challenging, 2 chilies for the kind of middle bit, and 3 spice levels. And Hannah's dying.
I'm like, I haven't seen that since, like, even before I was an instructor for a couple of years and then did my training. I had that like good well over 10 years ago. I remember that one.
And certainly when I teacher trained, I did a bit of time as a primary math specialist, and I taught 3 different math sets, and I had to still differentiate in those 3 sets, and it nearly killed me. And just the amount of paper and kind of cutting out of bits, kind of smushing sheets together to kind of this work with, I am not team differentiation. I appreciated it for what it was at the time, and I kind of understood the reasoning behind it. I'm far more team adaptive teaching. You gotta rock and roll.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's about adapting. So it's scaffolding, isn't it? So help them, to give them the steps to get there. But also don't forget to scaffold at the top. Give them outstanding examples to raise their attainment, like make them achieve higher, because you're giving the steps to go beyond. Don't just settle for the middle, and that they've what is it? Some, all, most, or what was it? Most, all, most, some,
I know.
all, yeah, it's almost there. But but no, they should all achieve, but you've got to give them stepping stones to go beyond, and help those kids kind of build beyond what they're capable of. And then you take it away, and that's what adaptive, like sometimes it'll be there, then once they get the hang of it, then you'll take it away, then you'll give them a higher challenge, and then you add a little bit in. So yeah, I mean, I had Renee on a little bit while ago on his book, Formative Action, from instrument to design. So if anybody's kind of into this kind of thing, then do go back and watch that show, because he talks really well about it and what it kind of is, and how to do it properly in your lessons. I think is really interesting. I think that'll be more where it'll go. Oh, Paul!
We've risen him from his slumber. He heard us. So, show of the week, I'm watching Learning Lots of Lols. Oh, Paul, we love you. Thank you for the well wishes. We do wish you well. What were we talking about?
Move on. Well-being.
So
if
hang
you
on.
want to know how to do well-being right, then go and watch our show from last week. I'd like to say it's up there with one of my best shows I've ever done on TTR.
Oh, so
I highly giggled my way through it. So if you want to know how to do it properly, then go back and watch it last week. But yeah, well-being done badly.
Now, I had to put the caveat in here because obviously we talked about well-being last week, and there are so many ways to do it well, as we established. And I put this in because it pees me off, to be honest, that so many places do it badly, and that the idea is, we'll get someone in to do a yoga session in your staff meeting time. Oh, bore off. Nah, sorry, do better. I don't want a yoga session in my staff meeting time. I'd rather you cancel the staff meeting and I can go to the gym. Cheers.
I don't want fruit in the staff room. Like after a parents' evening for my well-being. I want. Oh, if it's like, I appreciate that they might be trying to be helpful and nice, and it's nice that it's there as an option. But if I've done an open evening or a parents' evening, give us chocolate, lots of it.
Yes, I agree.
Not some oranges.
Also, if you say you're providing dinner, breakfast biscuits. And if anyone from this particular school, you know who you are. Breakfast biscuits are not dinner. Also, breakfast biscuits are not snacks. I want chocolate digestives, please, as a very bare minimum.
We had the kindness head teacher when I was covering over on Education Tonight, who was amazing. So if anybody, again, go have a little watch of him chatting about. But he has a little dinner trolley. He pushes it around school and makes his staff cups of tea. I'm like, I want to come work in your school. I mean, I'm in a school where I've got a feeder, so we have Friday breakfast, and we do have full on. It's pastries. There's like bacon butties and watermelon if you are that way inclined. It's just like I'm so glad I get to Friday and I get to have like proper breakfast rather than my protein shake, which is yeah.
Oh, we talked about the protein shakes, but they're good. They do the job. But no, Friday you won. I used to have something with my colleagues in school I've just left called bitching breakfast, which we used to have on, which wasn't provided by school, sadly, but someone would either I would have baked, which I did periodically, or someone would go over to the Aldi over the road from school and bring back various chocolate pastries. And yeah, that would be a half an hour. When I say, did we do much bitching? I don't know. I think it was just a kind of, oh, thank God it's Friday. It was more of a TGIF type thing. Anywho, we've digressed. So yes, don't give Hannah fruit if you want to get on her good side. Biscuits and chocolate only. Duly noted. Onwards. Got one more, I think. We're running slightly over, but we'll live. Roger will forgive us. Oracy, Hannah, this was your one.
Yeah, I feel like, and apologies in advance to Jamie. Jamie's got a show on Oracy on Saturday. So if you do love Oracy, go watch that on Saturday, because I'm sure it'll be amazing. But also, I know he did joke that Australia is slightly behind UK. And obviously, Oracy was the big fad last year. So I think, so I am a big fan of Oracy. I think Oracy is really important. I love Oracy in my classroom, and I can see the benefits. So when I have discussions about really disciplinary knowledge with my art students about kind of different things, like we talk about Vincent van Gogh using pen and ink to draw his drawings before painting, or the fact that he went insane and chopped his ear off because he fell out with his mate and he never ever sold a painting and kept applying to galleries and kept getting rejected. Like, those kind of conversations are really interesting, and it will enhance their writing and their understanding of kind of painting. And same with looking at we look at David Hockney and his iPad versus his painting, and the different ways and which one's more skillful. Is it more skillful to paint on an iPad or on a with paint and paintbrushes, and the differences between them? Like, they're the conversations that we should be having oracy, unless your languages, I appreciate languages needs a lot of oracy and kind of pronunciation and stuff. I don't quite get the kind of call and response. It's like, as somebody that's kind of quite I say quite a nervous speaker, but then now I'm here chatting away on podcasts every week and I'm fine. But like, for me, that was quite nerve-wracking to say that, to kind of call and response, and I've never overly been comfortable with that kind of oracy. But I do think oracy is important, and I don't want it to be forgotten, but it does feel a little bit like that fad is over, and I don't think it should be. I think it should still be relevant, but I also think it shouldn't be a fad. It should just exist.
I have no notes, to be honest. I am with you on that. I think that I shockingly am one of those teachers who do kind of, I've done sort of shows on accents and things like that, but I am one of those teachers who I think being able to articulate yourself confidently from a young age, even if it's not your favorite thing to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting there forcing kids to read aloud if they don't want to, and things like that. But I think your ability to, whether you're expressing an opinion, reading, whatever it is you are doing, so it's so important. But as you say, this should just be a fundamental part of what we do every single day through every subject. A lot of us do. I think the fact that this has become a fad is actually a bit silly because I appreciate the work that a lot of the charities and organizations who are advocating for this do, and I think they do great work. But I think also there are many teachers out there who are already doing most of this stuff anyway and doing it incredibly well. So the fad itself, I think will die off a bit, as in it being the kind of focal thing. But I think that there will be plenty.
It's much of a buzzword, I don't think.
Yes, the buzz. Yes, that's exactly. See, you're better at this than me. The buzzword itself, I think, will naff into the ether somewhere. But I think the sort of the core beliefs and the core kind of fundamentals of it will stick around, because they've been here anyway for a long time, as you so beautifully explained. And after saying that, I then rambled for 2 minutes.
I think as well, it's one of those that I don't think teachers are taught how to do it properly, because I think we just think it's just asking them, getting kids to speak out loud. But actually, a lot of it is on how you deliver it. So asking the really good questions and then building. So I love an ABC, add, build, challenge. So I'll ask a kid something and then I'll be like, but what if this? And then I'll flip it and be like, what do you think? So we did the thing with Year 9 on public art. It's like, do you think we should pay for public art out of taxpayers' money? And they're like, no. They're like, why would you pay money for like a piece of art to go in public? That's just pointless. There's way better things. I'm like, but what if that was to go in an area that needs regenerating and therefore would bring more business into that area? And then they're like, oh, actually, maybe okay. I was like, well, what if it's a statue of Ronaldo outside of a stadium to sponsor him? Because we know that one's badly done. But it just kind of, if you want to make them think and make them think hard and articulate that, and also kind of make it relevant, kind of give it that context. This is our point to make. And again, that links into our lovely sponsors over at Future and Careers, and like making it relevant, giving it context. So giving you kind of good questioning and making you think. And I think that's the difference between doing oracy really well and doing oracy poorly. Like, let's not make it doesn't need to be a buzzword anymore. We don't need to tick off that we're all doing oracy. We just need to make sure we're really questioning kids and making them being articulate, especially after COVID, because they haven't had that conversation skill. I feel I've gone all show without saying COVID, so I did quite well.
Yeah, and also not kind of understanding that responding to something with skibbity toilet is not the way forward. It's not. And doing everything with Riz. There you go, Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I have truly aged myself there, and I think that might be time to.
I'm going to ask what that means when we finish.
Riz is short for charisma.
Oh, okay.
Have you not heard that one yet?
No. I've learned something new today, which is ironic being on Inset all day.
Oh, wow. Oh, honestly. But at least, we are having fun doing these shows, and that is the most important thing. But we should probably think about calling it, and I think that was it for our various fads. If you have any others, by all means, tweet them to us. or share your comments. We're going to continue doing these shows, Hannah and I. If there's something you want us to discuss or something that you think is fit for us to, I don't know, take apart. No, we don't really take things apart. I suppose fit for us to, I don't know what word. Debate, yes, let's go with that. Then do let us know. We are all ears. Once again, thank you to both of our sponsors, so Future and Careers and to John Catt Educational. We appreciate you being on board with us. Thank you to all of those who tuned in. There's 839, so that's pretty incredible. So thank you to all of you, and I'm glad that we've kept you engaged and entertained for as long as we have. So truly appreciate that. We will be back next week, I believe. To talk about something else. Don't know what yet. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, Hannah, anything to add?
No, I think that's it. I hope everyone who gets, some people might have had kids back today, but if you've got them coming in tomorrow, then I hope it all goes smoothly and the first week isn't as painful as you anticipate it to be.
Apparently Riz was the word last year. See, I'm already behind.
That fad is already gone, Lucy. You're behind.
Okay. Definitely time for this oldie to go to bed then. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you again next week.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused